Once you deceived a black dragon into giving you a baby in your dream. Another succubus was moved with pure love. In the end, you even forcibly took a saintess as your concubine. But when the dream ended, your two servant girls anxiously said, "The women you bullied in your dream are all chasing after you now." It turns out you are the eldest son of a declining noble family who activated the dream simulation system. The host can personally experience everything in the dream, and after waking up, based on the dream's content, the host receives corresponding rewards. So to save your family from impending doom, you slowly closed your eyes and entered the dream. In the dream, you were born into a knight's family. Both of your parents were renowned knights among humans, and naturally, you had great talent. At your first birthday celebration, you immediately grabbed the small sword prepared by your father. When you were 2 years old, just learning to walk, you could already lift a 25-kilogram greatsword. Your father laughed loudly in joy. "My son has the makings of a sword saint." From then on, your father subjected you to harsh training, making you swing your sword 10,000 times a day. By the age of 12, even your father was no match for you. You had become a renowned sword prodigy. From the age of 12 to 15, countless sword masters attempted to take you as their disciple. But unfortunately, none could teach you for more than 2 days, because you could learn and surpass them within 10 days. Your fame spread far and wide. Even beyond the Gamma Empire, the entire human world knew of a sword prodigy emerging from the Gamma Empire. This led to the Sword Saint, acknowledged by the human world, coming out of seclusion because of you. He declared that he would teach you all his insights. Without hesitation, you quickly agreed to take him as your master. You then bid farewell to your parents and followed the Sword Saint into the 10,000 mountains to train. The old Sword Saint imparted all his experience to you. But then he told you, "Those who imitate me will perish. My methods are not suited for you." He pointed to the 10,000 mountains behind him and said, "Each mountain here holds a sword soul. You must defeat all 10,000 sword souls to comprehend your own sword path." You said nothing, just knelt on the ground and kowtowed 3 times to the Sword Saint. Then, taking an ancient iron sword, you walked into the 10,000 mountains without looking back. From that day, you vanished from the mortal world, as if you had never existed. People said your talent was too high, that you saw things you shouldn't have, and went mad. In the first 2.5 years, everyone pitied you. But as the years passed, the world gradually forgot you. Only one person still waited by the entrance to the 10,000 mountains. He was your master, the old Sword Saint. He believed that you would definitely come out. 6 years later, a golden light shot up from the 10,000 mountains. Its brilliance shocking an area of 10,000 miles around. The old Sword Saint was moved to tears. Nearby experts also rushed over, wanting to know which peerless powerhouse had appeared. When the light faded, you walked out of the 10,000 mountains, your clothes ragged and your face unshaven. The long sword you took in with you was now rusty and worn. No one could imagine that you were a 21-year-old youth. No one could imagine that you were a peerless powerhouse. Suddenly, the old Sword Saint drew his sword on you, his face serious as he said, "Fight me. Let me see the difference between us." You didn't respond, instead using your sword energy to clean yourself up, and then saluted the old Sword Saint once more. Then you flicked the rusty sword with your finger. Instantly, the sword exuded such intense sword intent that many of the surrounding experts couldn't keep their eyes open. They exclaimed in shock, "He hasn't even drawn his sword, yet his sharpness is already so evident." The old Sword Saint looked at you with approval. From this sword intent alone, he knew you had surpassed him by far, but he still wanted to see just how great the difference between you and him was. Draw your sword. This battle astonished the world, because you only made one strike, and instantly defeated the old Sword Saint. But there was not a trace of regret in the old sword saint's eyes. Instead, he shouted excitedly, "Keep going! You can definitely take that final step." Because he knew you had one last step to take. At that moment, everyone was asking, "What is the name of your sword?" You fell into deep thought, because you didn't know its name either. So you suddenly said, "This sword is nameless." From that day on, your fame resounded throughout the human world once more. Everyone knew you defeated the old sword saint with one move. To find the last step in the old sword saint's eyes, you began to travel the world. In 2.5 years, you challenged the strongest in every field, but no one ever forced you to use a second move. You finally became the strongest human. There was no one left in the world who could be your opponent, but you felt even more troubled, because the final step the old sword saint spoke of was always just out of reach. 300 years passed in a flash. Your parents had long since passed away, and you continued to travel famous mountains and rivers. But this time, your fame did not disappear. Despite countless geniuses rising over 300 years, people would always say, "They are not as good as you." But suddenly, a great change occurred. A black dragon suddenly appeared in the human world. No one knew where she came from. She boasted arrogantly, challenging all the strongest warriors, and said that if no one could defeat her, she would destroy this world. Upon hearing this, strong warriors from all races came to challenge her. But without exception, no one could defeat her. People were terrified and panicked, constantly calling your name, hoping you would intervene. And indeed, you did. In a valley filled with hibiscus flowers, you met the black dragon for the first time. Looking at her colossal figure towering thousands of feet, you felt no fear, only excitement. You drew your sword and charged, fighting the black dragon. Both of you were pursuing that final step, but she had gone further than you. Undoubtedly, you were defeated. She seemed to have taken one more step than you. But that step felt like an insurmountable chasm between you and her. Although you lost, you felt an immense sense of satisfaction. In truth, you had long since lost any attachment to this world. But to save its people, you had to try another approach. So you said, "The black dragon's body is too large, and its scales too tough, making every breakthrough extremely difficult. This is unfair to me. I hope you can transform into a human form to fight me." Through your persuasive words, the black dragon hesitated for a moment and then agreed. She said she was born to fight the strongest warriors. You were indeed the strongest she had ever met, and fairness was indeed necessary. So she reverted to her human form, revealing an incredibly beautiful appearance, with white hair and a white dress, a dragon tail trailing behind her, and an arrogant expression. You were slightly taken aback, seemingly not expecting her to be so beautiful. But you quickly regained your composure. In human form, you might be able to defeat her. So you raised your sword and attacked again. However, unsurprisingly, you lost once more. She still had that one extra step beyond you, a step that seemed insurmountable. The black dragon proudly said, "As agreed, I will now destroy the world." In a moment of desperation, you lied again, saying, "I can bring you a stronger human, one who will surely defeat you." The black dragon naturally didn't believe you. Knowing you were the strongest human, she realized you were just trying to buy time. Understanding that this lie was too crude, you shook your head and explained, "I have a method to create a human several times stronger than myself, but it will take 10 months. The black dragon, though skeptical, agreed to wait, as she only wanted to fight strong opponents, not to destroy the world. Moreover, 10 months was just a blink of an eye for an immortal like her. However, she made one condition: to create the strongest human, you must stay by her side the entire time." This request left you stunned, because it was exactly what you intended. So you readily agreed. "No problem. But if it's here, I might need your help. She happily agreed, for she was willing to do anything to fight the strongest. Seeing this, you closed in and started fighting the black dragon again. This battle was particularly fierce, with clothes fluttering, the earth shattering, and the sun and moon revolving. The round moon peeked from behind the mountains, its roundness swallowed and spat out by dark clouds. The joyful sound of the wind echoed through the valley. Finally, two streams of stars flowed out, the stars in the river radiating energy. In terms of sound, touch, and vision, everything reached its peak. Lying in bed, you felt it was too real, thinking you'd probably need to change your pants when you woke up. This battle lasted 3 months. During this time, you tried various methods. In the end, the beautiful black dragon girl successfully bore your child. At that moment, you tenderly held the black dragon girl's hand. Come back with me. But the black dragon still refused. She was naive but not stupid, knowing your invitation probably meant no good. So you said again, only in the place I found can we better cultivate the strongest human. Otherwise, you still won't be able to defeat me. Alright. The black dragon, naive and helpless, nodded. And so, the innocent and naive black dragon girl was tricked into coming home with you. Meanwhile, the sleeping you had a satisfied smile on your face. Sukinyu and Eliza, standing by your bed, looked puzzled. What is the young master dreaming about? Miss, the young master has been sleeping for a whole day, Eliza said with some concern. Sukinyu also looked worried, but seeing the note you left on the bedside table, they chose to trust you. It's all right. Let him sleep. Ever since you brought the black dragon girl home, the crack in the sky disappeared, and the world returned to normal. People cheered and danced, singing your praises. They even spontaneously built statues in your honor. They believed you had defeated the black dragon. But no one knew what you did in that valley filled with hibiscus flowers. They only saw you finally walking out of the valley, holding the hand of a white-haired, red-eyed, barefoot girl in a white dress. With a look of happiness on your face, they all sighed with emotion. That the sword saint who once only had eyes for cultivation had also fallen in love. 2 months later, you held a grand wedding in your hometown. On that day, countless people came to celebrate, and those princesses and saintesses who admired you stayed home heartbroken and crying. At the wedding, the black dragon asked you, "What is happening now?" You cupped your face and smiled slightly, saying, "This ceremony can make your opponent even stronger." Hearing this, the black dragon laughed. She laughed happily, seemingly anticipating an evenly matched opponent. Seeing her incredibly beautiful face, you couldn't resist and kissed her, because you knew you had already fallen in love with her. The days after the wedding were very happy. You felt that the final step was not achieved through hard cultivation, but required a special opportunity. So you simply gave up cultivating, because you now had something more important. Living with the black dragon girl, she was simple-minded, almost always obeying you, except for sometimes impatiently asking, "Sword Saint, you said that after 10 months, a human stronger than you would be born to fight this dragon." You sighed and nodded, knowing she was venting her pregnancy frustrations again. Fortunately, you were very familiar with the upcoming conversation. She took a deep breath and said, "So I told you not to wander off. Stay by this dragon's side." You nodded again. Then she waved her fist angrily and said, "Why did things turn out this way?" You shrugged. Following her words, you said, "Isn't this normal? With the dragon's excellent bloodline, combined with my sword saint's bloodline, we can surely create an opponent stronger than me." Hearing your flattery, the black dragon nodded approvingly, but then retorted, "Of course, my bloodline is incredibly powerful. However, no matter what, something still feels off." The black dragon pointed at her pure white maternity dress. Maintaining this human form for several months is extremely uncomfortable. I really need to take a break and go outside to fight. The first time she mentioned this, you were at a loss. But now, you calmly took a sip of tea and in a mocking tone said, "Don't be hasty. Are you afraid? Didn't you say before that for the long-lived Black Dragon clan, a few months are just like a few minutes?" You continued to provoke her. No way! Are you afraid of losing to this yet to be born strongest human? So you're purposely causing trouble to hinder her development in your belly, hoping she be weaker at birth. Black Dragon jumped up in anger, punching you a few times. If it were someone else, they would be in pieces by now. In the end, she gritted her teeth and stubbornly said, "What nonsense are you talking about? We dragons don't have family affection to fight strong opponents. Even if it's my child, I will fight her without mercy. Just wait. I will make her the strongest in the world." You sighed in relief, finally calming her down. Days pass one by one, perhaps due to the powerful bloodlines of you and the Black Dragon. The time you deceived her with extended from 10 months to 1 year, then to 2.5 years, and finally to 3 years. The Black Dragon seemed to get used to it, no longer clamoring to fight while pregnant. Finally, after 5 years, your child was born. There were no anomalies or omens. Just during a meal, your child emerged. Seeing the egg in the Black Dragon's arms, you twitched your lips. Looks like it still needs to hatch. The Black Dragon gazed intently at the egg in her arms, her expression incredibly tender, yet her tone still arrogant, as expected of the strongest warrior, making me suffer so much. Finally coming out. Hearing this, you scoffed. Suffering? The one who suffered was always me, every day complaining about discomfort, wanting to eat this or that, demanding winter vegetables in summer, and summer vegetables in winter. Listening to your words, her face turned bright red, yet she stubbornly maintained her tough demeanor. Nonsense! I didn't want to eat any of it. It was the egg in my belly that wanted to eat. To give birth to the strongest warrior, I had no choice. You nodded approvingly and said, "You're surprisingly obedient." What a pleasant surprise. The Black Dragon thought you were praising the child, even though it was just an egg. Her face still showed pride and joy. Of course. Look whose child it is. Such qualities are ingrained from birth. But you gently stroked her hair and said tenderly, "Not the seed, it's you. Didn't you say the child should start fighting as soon as it's born?" Her face instantly turned red, stammering, "Well, I think she's not strong enough yet. It's just an egg. She needs time to grow. So I'm just waiting a bit," which is just a moment for me. Seeing the Black Dragon's flustered expression, you found it incredibly adorable. Watching her sit on the bed with the child in her hands, you felt like you had the whole world. During this time of giving up cultivation and staying with the Black Dragon, your strength actually progressed faster. It indeed proved the saying, to cultivate, one must first cultivate the heart. But you were still just a step away, just a tiny bit away. Time flew by, and your child had not yet hatched. But the egg that enveloped her seemed to be able to communicate with the outside world. You named her Sioux Engine, meaning peace and joy. When the hibiscus blooms, it was like the first time you and the Black Dragon met in that valley. According to your daughter, she needed to absorb enough energy to break out of the shell. So you searched for various rare materials for her, but there were no signs of hatching. Moreover, the egg would occasionally heat up. Black Dragon sat by the bed, looking worried. "What should we do? Why is the egg so hot? Will it be cooked?" You gently patted her back and said softly, "Don't worry, it's just a normal problem." But she still fretted, complaining, "It's all because of your human bloodline that this is happening." You didn't know what to say, so you just urged her to rest. But she glared at you with a resentful expression. How can I rest now if I'm not here to cool it down? What if it gets too hot? Oh, it won't die. Didn't you say dragons don't have family affection? She immediately refuted. It's not about affection. If it dies, there won't be anyone to fight. You laughed. Right. I'll go use something tasty. When you returned, the black dragon had fallen asleep on the bed. You gently lifted her onto the bed and continued ... When she seemed to have thought of something and whispered in your ear, "Human, my name is Areno Millis. Kelphite Millie Achikate." She said a long name, which left you momentarily stunned, then overjoyed, because you clearly understood what it meant for a dragon to tell you her true name. It meant she had considered you her most intimate person. Don't overthink it. I just thought that when I defeat the child and destroy this world, you should know it was me. During the egg incubation period, Areno would occasionally shout about wanting to fight. You had no choice but to accompany her in a few battles. Whether it was due to pregnancy or something else, your strengths were becoming more equal. The last time you ended in a draw, she looked at you incredulously, but you laughed heartily and picked her up, setting up a barrier around you. You finally regained your dignity as a man, both on the battlefield and elsewhere. Smiling, you said, "We are raising a warrior." Now, you truly deserve the title Invincible under heaven. You never expected that your peaceful days would continue like this. But good times didn't last long. A massive crack appeared in the sky again, and this time, many dragon clans came. It turned out that Areno had sneaked out at the time. She was a princess of the Black Dragon clan, and the world you were in was the first world Areno encountered. The new Dragon Lord wanted to eliminate all remnants, so they came here to capture Areno. You thought to yourself, no wonder this is the first world. Otherwise, with her naive nature, she would have been deceived long ago. Now her clansmen came to capture her, and they wanted to kill you and your child as well, because in their eyes, Areno was a remnant of the old king, and you were a lowly human. Your child was seen as an abomination, a disgrace to the dragon clan. Hearing this, you didn't hesitate for a moment, grabbing your sword and flying towards the sky. Even if you were to face 300 magic dragons, you would fight to the end. At the same time, Areno revealed her true form and flew up as well. She arrogantly declared, "The child is my opponent. I must deal with this personally." This time, you didn't waste words and cooperated with her, slaying countless enemies together. But despite your and Areno's great strength, the sheer number of enemies was overwhelming. You both grew exhausted, and the new Dragon King was incredibly powerful. At this moment, you were fighting dozens of black dragons, leaving Areno to face the Dragon King alone. The difference in their raw power was evident, especially since she was already exhausted. So after just a few exchanges, Areno was defeated. Her broken body felt like a severed string. Seeing this, the Black Dragon King pursued, swearing to kill her with one strike. You screamed in agony, memories suddenly flooding your mind. The landscapes you had traveled, the myriad scenes you had observed, and every moment shared with Areno. With determination, your eyes shone like lightning, your entire being emanating an incredible aura. This state was like the first time you walked out of the 10,000 mountains. You finally understood what that missing piece was. Previously, your sword was called Nameless, because you didn't know why you wielded it. But now you knew. Your sword was no longer nameless, but guardian. You finally took that step. Facing the magic dragons many times your size, you shouted, "I am the Sword Saint, to suppress all enemies in the world." Then, with a slight shake of your sword, a single sword cry, killed all the enemies except the Black Dragon King. Then you simply made a light slash at the air. Though it seemed casual, only the Black Dragon King could sense its terrifying power. The Black Dragon King's eyes widened, his face filled with disbelief. As he disintegrated into ashes in this world, you sighed in relief. But your sword didn't stop. You sealed this world completely, ensuring no one could leave or enter. After doing all this, you lost consciousness. When you woke up again, you were lying in bed. Not far away, Areno saw you wake up and hurriedly ran over. It seemed like just a moment ago. Your daughter, still in her egg, kept rocking back and forth, rubbing her eggshell against you. From Areno's words, you learned that you had been unconscious for 3 months. She hugged you tightly like a child and cried in your arms. You smiled and comforted her, saying you were fine, but she didn't notice the hint of bitterness in your smile. Life returned to peace after that. With your seal, no one came to invade again. However, 5 months later, you noticed a strand of white hair in the mirror and let out a sigh. You knew your time was running out. Even though you had temporarily broken through in that battle, the human body was inherently weak, and you were already covered in wounds at the time. So after slaying the magic dragon, your power dissipated, and you completely became immortal. Now, all told, you had less than a year left. This also explained why Areno could no longer sense your power. But you lied, easily deceiving her. Ever since realizing she couldn't beat you, she had been very happy every day. You lived like ordinary lovers, having picnics, buying and selling, taking walks. Everything was beautiful. Until you unfortunately fell down a slope, breaking your arm. Areno couldn't believe it. How could the strongest you end up like this? Combining this with previous behaviors, she seemed to understand something. But she didn't show it, and life went on as usual. Every day, she still supported you, walking with you on the mountain path. She returned to her former arrogant self, saying, "Really? To think you once defeated the Black Dragon King, and now you fall and end up like this. Just thinking about having to fight someone as weak as you before. It's so embarrassing." You replied nonchalantly, "Getting old. If I were a bit younger, it probably wouldn't be a problem." However, this seemed to upset her. As her voice suddenly rose, "Don't say that. A little human younger than me by who knows how many years dares to say they're old in front of me." Hearing this, you joked, "Yes, indeed. Compared to you, I'm far too young. Maybe I should start calling you Granny." Before you could finish your sentence, she gave you a push. Back at home, Areno brought a glass bottle containing a crimson liquid. It was medicine she had found for you. Since drinking it every day, you indeed felt your physical functions improving. As for the origin of the medicine, although you found it strange, she refused to tell you, until one late night, you woke up and noticed the usual warm body beside you was missing. Feeling puzzled, you suddenly heard a suppressed and painful sound coming from the bathroom. Seeing what was happening inside, you finally understood what the medicine was. It was Areno's heart blood. For the first time, you got angry in front of her. She had never seen you so furious. She cried like a child, rushing into your arms sobbing, "I don't want to lose you." You held her with one hand, saying nothing. Both of you silently shed tears. Though you wanted to live, you didn't want to hurt her more. After that, you stopped eating anything she gave you. That had been out of your sight. She understood your intentions and gave up on that idea, focusing on being with you. Without the sustenance of dragon blood, you aged rapidly. A year passed quickly, and you lay in bed, your hair white and frail. Areno, sitting beside you, still looked like a young girl. When you went out now, people would think you were a grandfather and granddaughter. You handed her a small sword. "This is the key to leaving this world and breaking through my sword energy seal." At that moment, you sighed and said, "Looking at you like this reminds me of the first time we met." You vaguely remember. The girl calmly replied, "It's just something from a few decades ago." To this dragon, It's like it happened just a few days ago. You weakly continued. To tell the truth, what I said to you back then was all a lie. She pinched your wrinkled skin and said, "Hey ha, did you think I was a fool? I figured it out a long time ago. Meeting you has been the luckiest thing in my life." You trembled as you reached out, gently caressing Arlen's smooth, fair face. "This time, I mean it from the bottom of my heart," you said, using your last breath. "For your dragon clan. This is just a fleeting moment, but you still chose to stay by my side. I am truly grateful to you. I still haven't defeated you." Your consciousness began to blur. You could no longer see the beautiful face of the person next to you. You had so many regrets. Not being able to stay with her until the end. Not being able to see your daughter hatch. At this moment, Arlen couldn't hold back anymore. She broke down crying and tightly held your hand. "You are not a liar. You have already defeated me. Because of you, didn't the black dragon fall?" she said as she laid on your chest, crying. In a trance. You hear a cracking sound, like an eggshell breaking. But before you can open your eyes to check, the dream has already ended. When you open your eyes and wake up, you feel an emptiness in your heart. Your pillow is already wet. There is a glass of water prepared by Eliza next to your bed. She seems to change it at regular intervals. The temperature is just right for drinking. The dream was indeed profound. You cover your chest and sigh. Longevity theory. It really is about the people who wield the blade. That intense emotion makes you feel a bit sad even now. You can't help but be thankful. Fortunately, it was my dream. Otherwise, how sad would Evan be alone? The system prompt suddenly rings. Congratulations to the host for surviving 378 years. The performance evaluation of this dream is S level. Rewards are being distributed to you. Reward 1, the Shield of the Guard. Reward 2, the Energy Guide of the Guard. Warm reminder. Each time the performance is a level or above, you can receive a reward. You feel a joy in your heart. Finally, I got something good. Unlike the first dream where you only lived for 2 years. As a result, you got no rewards. Judging by the names of these 2 rewards, does it mean I can cultivate now? So this is a world where cultivation is possible, with various professions existing. Outside, there are powerful beasts, and because of your family's implementation, in the past, there was no clear path for your cultivation. Now, you can finally embark on this journey. The Sword Manual of the Guardian is exactly the moves you created in your dream, and the Energy Guide is specifically designed to complement this sword manual for cultivation, since it was a sword technique you created in another world. It is different from any cultivation methods in this world. Only by pairing it with this special Energy Guide can it be practiced. At this moment, you recall your earth-shattering battle with the Black Dragon clan in the dream. Your white robe and long sword, standing alone against thousands of soldiers. It was truly magnificent. With these 2 rewards, this scene won't just appear in dreams. You can achieve it in reality as well. Thinking of this, you get out of bed and walk towards the door, but suddenly feel your legs are hard to move. Looking down, your face turns red. It seems that you need to wash your pants later. You throw your pants on the bed and walk out, thinking to see the scenery outside. A few minutes later, Eliza gently comes in, sees no one on the bed, and only a pair of pants lying there. The young master is really something. She mutters, always leaving a mess. She reaches out to touch the pants, and finds them a bit strange. Bringing them to her nose, she smells them, seeing the marks on the bed. Although she hasn't experienced such things, her face turns red. The young master has really grown up. Meanwhile, in the Gamma Empire, a silver-haired girl opens her eyes. Looking at the small sword in her hand, she is stunned for a moment. Gently touching the egg on the bed, she softly says, Mom will be back soon. Then a chilling aura bursts from her body. Towards the sky. Arlen, you returned the small sword I gave you to the Dragon Clan. The elites of the Black Dragon Clan. Almost all died under your sword. Undoubtedly, she became the queen of the Dragon Clan. At this moment, she is looking at an ancient black dragon, with the Dragon Clan's omniscient prophet at her feet. Where do humans go after they die? The prophet, trembling, says, after humans die, their bodies decompose, and their souls reincarnate. How long does it take to reincarnate? I don't know. It could be hundreds of years. Maybe thousands or even tens of thousands of years. Hearing this, Arlen says indifferently, it's just a bit of time. I can wait. With that, she sheaths her sword and returns to the small house in the Gamma Empire, watching the egg about to hatch. She is full of joy. If lucky, they can reunite in just a few hundred years. However, this time she seems to have underestimated time. Although only a few years have passed, it feels longer than the thousands of years she had lived before. When you were here, even decades passed quickly. But after you were gone, the eggs seemed to stop hatching. Only a few decades passed, and the small house you once lived in collapsed. Arlen was full of guilt. No matter how she tried to repair it, it couldn't return to its original state. After a few hundred years, she kept reminiscing about the past every day, but she was almost unable to hold on. Suddenly, with a cracking sound, the eggshell broke. A delicate little girl emerged from the egg. She hugged Arlen and said in a childish voice, "Mommy!" At the same time, the small sword hanging on Arlen's chest trembled. Arlen's body shook. She wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. Holding the little girl, she softly said, "And Jin, let's go find Daddy." Meanwhile, you were busy thinking about how to explain. Trust me, I'm really okay. You looked at Eliza, who was sitting on the other side of the dining table interrogating you, not knowing how to explain. Young master, your pants. I've washed them clean. Eliza walked over, biting her lower lip, stuttering as she added, "Young master, there are guests." You felt like you wanted to buy a ticket to escape this world. Some people are alive but already dead. Now, you had to present evidence that you could cultivate to convince Eliza to believe you. Thinking of this, you didn't look back and went to your room, preparing to start cultivating. Meanwhile, in a corner of the Holy Grace continent, within a dark forest, two figures suddenly appeared. "Mommy, is Daddy here?" The little girl looked up at Arlen, her beautiful red eyes full of hope. "This time, there will be no mistake," Arlen said with certainty, as if telling the little girl, and also telling herself, time had not left any marks on her. She was still that same young girl you had deceived home. She squinted her eyes and looked around. This world status is indeed very high. Even her stagnated cultivation seemed to have a slight loosening tendency, as if she could advance further. This indicated that in this world, there were existences stronger than her. But she felt no fear, only confidence. Given time, she believed she could still reach the pinnacle. Suddenly, Arlen's clothes fluttered without wind, a mighty dragon's aura pressing down on the entire forest. In an instant, everything in the forest prostrated on the ground. "Come out! I don't want to say it a second time." Her voice echoed throughout the dense forest. Soon, a white tiger leapt out of the woods, pouncing towards Arlen, but she just glared at it, and it froze, unable to move, then fell from mid-air. Arlen spoke coldly to it. "You used to be the king of this forest, but now it's me. From today onwards, I will rule this forest. Who approves? Who opposes?" Her majestic voice trembled, like a supreme emperor questioning. Everything seemed natural. No one dared to resist. The entire forest was trembling. The Tiger King Liz was shaking all over. She had been happily ruling this mountain, not killing or setting fires. Just a bit lazy. How could such a powerful dragon clan member arrive? Give me the information about this continent. As a dragon queen, Arlen's intimidation of these little monsters was natural. It didn't take long for her to get the information she wanted. This place was called the Holy Grace Continent, mainly divided into 3 empires and various small countries. Within the empires were countless human territories and various races: elves, demons, dwarves. She could only roughly confirm now. You were in this world, because the sword on her chest was constantly trembling and glowing, but she couldn't accurately pinpoint your location. And although you had an Eastern face in your previous life, after reincarnation, would you still look the same? Mommy, can we find Daddy here? Don't worry, we will definitely find him, Arlen murmured. Meanwhile, you were sitting cross-legged on the bed, extremely excited. You succeeded! Just now, you tried the sword energy guide of the Guardian, possibly because you created it yourself. It took less than half an hour for you to succeed. Feeling that trace of sword energy within you, you understood in your heart that you had embarked on the path of cultivation. Moreover, you were surprised to discover that the power within you was different from what you had read about regarding this world's magicians and holy swordmen. Instead, it felt like cultivation. Cultivating in a world is indeed a good choice to practice some sword moves in the open space of the Lord's fortress. Then you estimated your current strength should have reached the entry level of a junior knight. But unfortunately, your family only hired knights for external procurements. So if you really wanted to find someone to spar with, Miss, where did the young master learn these? How can he do it so well after just a dream? It looks quite authentic. At this moment on the 3rd floor, Eliza and Suking, you were watching you practice swordsmanship by the window, both with puzzled expressions. Yes, where did he learn it? It can't be that he really learned it from a dream, right? Doesn't matter. At least it proves he wasn't drained by the succubus, and he looks very healthy. After a bit of practice, you return to your room. Now it's time to start your 3rd dream. You lie on the bed and slowly close your eyes. A new world is being created. Characters and environments are being generated. Entries are being randomly selected. This time, you receive the entry Innocent Heart. It means that in this simulation, no matter what you do, you will feel incredibly focused and undistracted. Once you decide on something, you will never change. Perverted sensation. In this simulation, all your pain will turn into pleasure. Now, the simulation begins. You look at the selected entries and feel a bit confused. You know that Innocent Heart is a good thing. But what is perverted sensation? Does it mean in this simulation, you will become some kind of masochist? With a bit of unease, you begin the simulation, but the start was like a heavy blow. In a remote village in the Annan Empire, you were born. From birth, your body was extremely weak. The doctor predicted you wouldn't live past 5 years. Your arrival added more burden to your impoverished family, but fortunately, your parents were loving and hardworking. They did not abandon you. You managed to live until you were 5. With the efforts of your parents, these 5 years were hard but happy. Unfortunately, when you were 7, your father, who went hunting with the men of the village, never returned. Since then, your family situation became even more difficult. And in this remote and undeveloped village, a family without an adult man was in a very precarious situation. Although your mother was weather-beaten, she still retained some of her beauty. So one night, several bachelors from the village broke into your house, intending to humiliate your mother. At that time, you were young and weak, unable to even lift a stick. You were kicked to the ground, unable to get up. Fortunately, a passing boxer came by, saving you and your mother. The sight of him defeating the villains with a few punches and kicks was deeply engraved in your mind. Unfortunately, the villains were not killed. They were still alive and well. You knew that once the boxer left, they would come back again, so you sought out the boxer, begging him to accept you as a disciple. You wanted to become strong and protect your mother, but he refused. He saw at a glance that your bones were poor, your body weak, and you didn't have many years left to live. Moreover, he was just passing through, only resting here for a while. But perhaps due to the effect of innocent heart, you knelt on the ground, continuously kowtowing, begging him, but the boxer still did not agree. Yet you seemed determined about this matter. Every day you came here to kowtow, rain or shine. Gradually, although the boxer still refused to accept you as a disciple, he no longer avoided you while practicing. You mimicked his movements in your mind. When he hit stones, you hit stones. When he punched trees, you punched trees. Your fists and legs were torn and bleeding, but it didn't affect you in the slightest. You continued to practice every day. You even found the pain on your body to be quite pleasurable. At first, you practiced to protect your mother, but now you genuinely loved this feeling. 2 months later, the boxer left. At the place where he stayed, there was only a tattered boxing manual lying quietly. You felt deeply moved. Bowing a few times towards the village entrance, you understood that although he didn't say it, he had already regarded you as his disciple in his heart. From then on, you practiced even harder, knowing that the bachelors wouldn't give you much time. Just as you felt your strength increasing day by day, and the lines on your body becoming more defined. Sure enough, one night they came again. You closed the bedroom door tightly, your gaze ferocious as you stared at the intruders. Due to the huge difference in physique, and the fact that there were 3 adults, no one took you seriously. But you were like a beast, not knowing pain, continuously throwing punches at them. Someone took out a knife and stabbed it into your right shoulder. Finally, your movement stopped, not because of the pain, but because it felt so good. The knife kept going in and out of your body, but your movements didn't slow down at all. Instead, you became more excited. You felt that the punches hitting their faces were incredibly satisfying. You believed that no weapon in the world could be stronger than your fists. Eventually, your ferocity conquered them. They were afraid of you, a child not even 10 years old. Looking at the numerous wounds and bruises on your body, you gradually understood that this body was born for battle. So you resumed your training. There weren't many moves in the boxing manual, mostly simple straight punches, hooks, kicks, and front kicks, but you never felt bored, continuing to practice every day. In this way, you survived past 10 years old. At 12, you were no longer satisfied with just kicking tree stumps every day. You began to venture deeper into the dense forest, where there were tusked wild boars, muscular bulls. They were your natural opponents. You could bring back countless prey from the forest every day, which led to others in the village starting to follow you to hunt. However, those who followed you back all unanimously declared that you were a madman. Indeed, who would hunt with bare hands? Thus, with countless prey piling up, your family began to gradually become wealthy. No one dared to look down on you and your mother anymore. But you were not content with the status quo. You craved for battles, you wanted to fight. At 18, your physique was incredibly strong, and you learned about an organization called the Adventurers Guild. There, you could fight powerful monsters and earn generous rewards. So you joined them. During one mission, you encountered a beautiful yet dangerous woman. She was hiding behind a tree, secretly watching you. You didn't think much of it and asked her for directions to Helm's Deep. Hello! Could you tell me how to get to Helm's Deep? Your voice startled her from behind, or at least it seemed to. But in reality, she did it on purpose, because she was actually a novice succubus. On her first mission, she thought you were just an ordinary adventurer, nothing to worry about. But seeing your tall stature, bronze skin, and solid muscles, only lacking blonde hair. She hid behind her tree, observing you. No way! Why did he suddenly ask me? The succubus screamed in her mind. Forcing herself to calm down, she kept reminding herself to be bold. He's just a mere human. Just a little seduction would do.